Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the To The Point podcast. It is Monday, November 30th, last day of November. And if you watched the NFL yesterday, you caught a good day. From the Broncos game where they had to start a practice squad quarterback to Patrick Mahomes having a great game, but in my opinion, a not so great game. It was one to remember. Week 12 was good. So just starting off today, let's talk about the Chiefs. They opened up with a 20-7 lead at halftime, but the rest of the game was really deceiving. So it starts off with Tyreek Hill catching 203 yards receiving in the first quarter. That's the third most in a quarter in the history of the NFL. He is now leading the league in receiving yards with 1,003, and his teammate Travis Kelce, who is a tight end, is second in the league in receiving yards. These two are just unbelievable talents, and they have the best quarterback in the league on their team. If they're the Super Bowl favorite, I don't think they're a lock, but they're definitely the favorite. However, in this game, it switched so drastically because you have the Chiefs dominating the game in the first half, but I was watching the game with my parents, and I said, if Tom Brady comes out in that field in the second half, he scores a touchdown in the first play, the Bucs will win this game. Well, he didn't. They got a field goal. They got down to Tampa Bay 8, and Daniel Sorensen broke up a pass. So they got a field goal. The next drive, Patrick Mahomes goes down the field, finds Tyreek Hill again for another touchdown. So he finishes the day with 13 catches, 276. He had a day yesterday. But the Chiefs are a great team. Well, no, I don't think they are a great. I think they're a good team. They're not a great team. There's no great team in the NFL this season. The Chiefs had a 27-10 lead, and then in the third quarter, Tom Brady throws 2 interceptions. He gives them 2 gifts to go seal the game. You know, if you have that Super Bowl mentality, if you have that winner's edge, you go for the jugular. You kill your opponent. You don't give them any hope. Well, the Chiefs has 2 3-and-outs. Patrick Mahomes just throws the ball away. They can't run the ball to save their life. I don't know what the hell they were doing. And then you give Tom Brady the ball back. Well, at the beginning of the fourth quarter, he throws a beautiful fade to Mike Evans in the end zone for a touchdown. Next possession with 3 minutes left, he scores another touchdown to Mike Evans. The Chiefs did nothing to put this game away, and it comes down to 27-24, and eventually the Bucs are out of timeouts, and Patrick Mahomes throws to guess who, Tyreek Hill, to seal the game. However, the biggest thing for me, yes, the Chiefs are 10-1, but they can be had. A lot of analysts are saying, well, the Chiefs are they're going to win the Super Bowl. They're going to have no problem. They're going to have some problems because their defense sucks, and Mahomes has been great, but his second half yesterday was mediocre at best. If I had to give him his overall game, his yardage yesterday, he had 436, 4 touchdowns. He only completed 8 passes. Don't get me wrong, that's great. But in the second half, he did nothing. He was dinking and dunking for 3-4 yard gains. He was, if I had to give him a letter grade for yesterday's performance, I'd give him a B. Because he could have won that game 50-20. But he didn't. He let Tom Brady hang around. The Bucs defense, which was getting torched in the first half, somehow wakes up, which they really weren't. It was just the Kansas City offense being inept for a long period of time. So the Chiefs are a good team, not a great team. That's my big takeaway. They have the best passing offense in the league. Their running offense is something to be desired. They rank 16th in NFL, which is below mid-pack. They're right around mid-pack, with 32 teams. So, they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a first-round pick out of LSU. They picked up Le'Veon Bell, but they don't have that back that you really need in the NFL. You need a workhorse. They don't have that. So if I'm the Kansas City Chiefs right now, I'm a little worried if I'm a fan because yes, they've only lost once and it was to the Oakland Raiders in week 4. But they need to pick it up a bit. Last year in the playoffs, they got down by 20-20 and they came back. This team's not good enough to do that because their defense isn't, and I don't see it on offense because there's too many times this year where Mahomes just plays terrible. He went into Denver this year, and Denver's a terrible team, and he scored 20 points, and one of them was a pick 6 by his defense. So the Chiefs need to watch out because they can be had. They have Denver coming up on Sunday Night Football, so that's a bye week. But they're the favorite, but they're a slight favorite in my opinion because they're not a great football team. Moving on to the day, the game I was the most excited about was Tennessee and Indy. Um, they played 2 weeks ago, and Indy spanked them in Week 10. Indy went into Tennessee, really brought the hammer, and they won 35-13. Then comes yesterday, and I thought, okay, this can be a great game. They're both defense. The Indy defense is really good, but it wasn't yesterday. It was terrible yesterday. Derrick Henry for the Tennessee Titans had 3 touchdown rushes, 27 carries, 176 yards. As a runner, he is the best running back in football. I do not think he's the best running back because I incorporate passing and rushing. I think Dalvin Cook is the best running back in football for the Minnesota Vikings. But you had him yesterday. Just bring it. He brought it all day long. The thing with Henry, he's 6'5", 265, 270. So the people that are going to have to tackle him are the big D linemen, the nose tackles at the line of scrimmage. If they don't, you can't have a 5'10", 190-pound safety or a corner, for crying out loud, try to tackle him because he's going to stiff arm them like he did Josh Norman earlier this year, or he's going to run all over them. After yesterday's game, now he leads the league in rushing. Tennessee, I believe, is a Super Bowl threat. Ryan Tannehill is a good enough quarterback. He wasn't in Miami, but that's not his fault. Miami was inept for a very long time. They're just starting to right the wave of ineptitude, but they have a team that can win. They have A.J. Brown, who had a touchdown reception, 3 receptions, 76 yards, and he had a punt return for a touchdown yesterday as well. He is a great receiver. They have Corey Davis. They also have Jonnu Smith at tight end. They just have a bunch of good players that really work well together. Their defense isn't great. They don't have great pass rushing, so that concerns me about them. They can't get to – yesterday got to Phillip Rivers a few times, but Phillip Rivers might be the slowest quarterback in league history, him or Tom Brady. Nick Foles is right there too. But, yeah, and yesterday – Indianapolis is doing something cool. They're a good team too. Don't get me wrong. They're 7-4. They'll make the playoffs. Right now, if the season ended, they'd be in the playoffs. I think they'll make the playoffs. But they have Phillip Rivers, who's 38. He's been in the league a long time, and I can't trust him. He's unreliable. He hasn't won anything in his career. He's been to a few AFC championship games, but that was back in 2007. And he lost to the Patriots. But Indy's good, but I worry about them. If their defense doesn't play great, and yesterday I will give them a slight pass because they did not have their best defender, DeForest Buckner, who was an all-pro and had 12 and a half sacks last year. So having him go against Henry in the middle of the field would have made a difference for sure. But they need to have their defense play great because I don't think Phillip Rivers is good enough to carry that team. And their running game, it's mix and match. They have N'Keal Hines, who's a very, very good running back, but he's not really a running back. He's more of a receiving back. So he'll catch 6-7 passes a game. I think he's got 7 receiving touchdowns on the season. Their leading running back, Jonathan Taylor, a rookie out of Wisconsin, was out yesterday. Because he tested positive for COVID. But yeah, they're missing something, the Colts. They're very close. I think they make a few changes in the offseason and they get a better quarterback. They're a Super Bowl threat down the line. But Tennessee is a good team. And next week, they have the Cleveland Browns, who, if you can believe this, if you know anything about football, you know a couple things. You know the Detroit Lions are the worst franchises in the NFL. That's just a fact. You know that the Cleveland Browns have been terrible for a very long time. But the Cleveland Browns are 8-3. They had a tough test yesterday from the 1-10 Jaguars. That concerns me a little bit. Mike Glennon, a third-string quarterback, almost beat them. So take that with a grain of salt. But next week, 2 8-3 teams will go head-to-head. They met last year in week 1, and Tennessee spanked the Browns. They beat them like 42-13. So expect the Browns to come out. I know it's last year's game, but they're still going to hold an edge to that. Teams always do. So I think Baker Mayfield and them will have I think that'll be the game of the week next week. That'll It's a 2:00 start here in Atlantic. Make sure to tune in CBS. But the Browns have a great team. Baker Mayfield's a good game manager. He's not a great quarterback. He's good on his best days. He's a good quarterback. But what he can do is he gives the ball to Nick Chubb, who's a flat-out stud running back, and they also have Kareem Hunt, who they have 2 running backs who are starters in the NFL, and they can give them each about 18 to 20 carries a game, and that takes a lot of the pressure off Baker. So the Browns are a threat, and watch Titans and Browns next weekend will be a great game. I'd say the Titans. I'll talk about this more Sunday morning, but I think the Titans open as a slight favorite, even though the game's in Cleveland. But I'd say it's a pick'em game because both teams have a lot to prove. Also on the weekend, I talked about the Lions being the worst franchise in the NFL. I'm joking a little bit, but not really. They have 1 playoff win in 60 years. 1. That's 1. And Toronto Maple Leafs fans, you think your organization sucks? Well, it does. But the Detroit Lions are on another level. I don't know. The Ford family owns the Detroit Lions, so I shouldn't be that surprised. You know, the Fords build bad trucks and they run bad franchises. That's just who they are. They've been terrible. They've had 2 first ballot Hall of Famers go to the league at 30 years old in their prime because they were so sick of Detroit. Barry Sanders, if you haven't watched film, go on YouTube and watch Barry Sanders clips because the guy was an unbelievable player. Some say he's the best running back ever. I think Jim Brown has a lot to say in that discussion, but he's probably the most athletic, maybe the most athletic player to ever put on cleats. And because they didn't surround him with talent and he just kept taking hit after hit every year, he said, you know what, I'm going to retire at 30 so I can, walk right. And he retired. And then they have Calvin Johnson, a.k.a. Megatron. In his heyday, he was the best receiver in the NFL. He could run any route. He was so big. He could go up against any defender and just crush them. He was like he has a body like LeBron James. He was built like a tight end, but he played wide receiver. He was that good. And Detroit was so bad, and he was getting hits, and they never made the playoffs, and they just garbage. So he retires. So, of course, in 2020, people are saying, well, the Lions, they could do stuff, all the ESPN pundits. And, they're 4-7, and, they played on Thanksgiving, so Thursday. They always play on Thanksgiving. I don't know why, because they started the tradition, so they have to. It's a joke that they play on Thanksgiving because they're not even the NFL shouldn't want them to play on Thanksgiving. They should want a good team to play on Thanksgiving. They lose to Houston. They get blown out. And then Saturday afternoon, I just look at my phone. Oh, the Detroit Lions have fired head coach Matt Patricia and GM Bob Quinn. No surprise here. They're 4-7. They're going to miss the playoffs again. They'll lose another 3. They got 5 games left. They'll lose 4 of them. That's just Detroit. They'll lose to Green Bay. They'll lose to Green Bay. They'll probably lose to Chicago again because I don't know. That franchise, they drafted Matthew Stafford 13 years ago, first overall, and he's made the playoffs twice, and he hasn't won a division. He was first overall and hasn't won a division title. They are so immune to success. If they had a vaccine for success, they wouldn't take it. They'd stay where they are because that's just who the Detroit Lions are. But yeah, this is how bad this franchise is, to put this into perspective in the grand scheme of things. 4 years ago, they had Jim Caldwell. If you might know him because he coached the Indianapolis Colts after Tony Dungy, who won the Super Bowl with Peyton Manning, and then in 2006, and then he retired. Well, Jim Caldwell took over, another African-American. He coached there for a while, had success with Peyton. They made a couple AFC Championship games, made the Super Bowl, but they lost to New Orleans in 2009. But, he went to Detroit 4 years. Well, they made the playoffs twice. And after what you just listened to me, they made the playoffs twice, the Detroit Lions. That is a miracle in and of itself. They didn't win the playoff games, but they made the playoffs. And in his 4 years, he averaged 9 wins. The coach they just fired has 13 wins in 3.5 seasons. 13. And that's total. He's 13, 23, and 1. He's atrocious. But you had Jim Caldwell, who was averaging, he was 9-7. So guess what? You're going over 500 every year. And you made the playoffs 2 out of 4 years in one of the toughest divisions in football with Aaron Rodgers. The Bears are always considered, and the Vikings for a long period of time were a great team. But no, let's fire Jim Caldwell. I wonder why. And they hire a white, overweight guy who, let's put this nicely. The first press conference he ever did, he criticized the media for being too relaxed. One guy was sitting back like this. And he criticized him, say, be more professional. He was wearing the Bill Belichick hoodie and a pencil behind his ear at the time. This guy is a piece of work if you're ever going to see one. And if there's privilege in the NFL, because there is, people don't like to realize it with the whole African-American issue, or people don't like to talk about the issue, which is fine. I will, because it exists. They fired Jim Caldwell to bring in the Bill Belichick disciple. Well, Bill Belichick's assistants have had very little to no success in the NFL. Andy Reid's assistants have had success. Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with the Eagles. Matt Nagy has won Coach of the Year. John Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl in Baltimore. Bill Belichick's assistants, Charlie Weiss, no success with the Jets. Romeo Crennel, no success. He's a defensive coordinator. He's been a good defense coordinator, but he's never won a Super Bowl outside of New England. All these assistants are no good. But you see Belichick's assistant, and you think, oh, well, Jim Caldwell's only getting us 9 wins, so let's fire him. But it's honest. I feel bad for Detroit Lions fans because they're such a mess. Such a mess. Anyway, that team. Also, this weekend in another great game. Well, it was a crazy game. The New England Patriots defeated the Arizona Cardinals 20-17. Definitely wasn't the prettiest game I've ever seen. Cam Newton threw for a total of 88 yards. 88 yards more than me and you. And he had 2 interceptions, but the Patriots won. The offense for Arizona was terrible. Kyler Murray threw a bad interception in the third quarter, and they were just out of sorts all day. They gave them bad field position. They made a couple bad coaching decisions. They went for it on 4th down on their own 45, get stuffed. They got stopped on the goal line on a 4th and 1 to end the first half. The Cardinals should have won the game, and they blew it. Kyler Murray, a week and a half ago now, played on Thursday Night Football, hurt his shoulder. He looks it because he's tentative to run. Kyler Murray, if any of you don't know, he played at the University of Oklahoma. He won the Heisman Trophy, and he might be the quickest quarterback in the NFL. Maybe the history. He's so small, but you look at his little legs go. He's 5'10", but he's built. He's a strong young man. But the Cardinals now are 6-5. They look like they could win the division, and they've hit the ditch here. They're outside the playoffs right now. They're behind the Seahawks and the Rams in their own division. The Rams lost yesterday too to a weak San Francisco team, but that whole division's up for grabs right now. The Seattle Seahawks actually play tonight at Monday Night Football. They're in Philadelphia to play the Eagles, but the Patriots, I got to give Bill Belichick credit. He's the best coach in the history of the NFL. I don't think Tom Brady's the best quarterback to ever play in the NFL, but Bill Belichick's the best coach. He's the genius. He makes up for every mistake. They've had 9 defensive players opt out this season because of COVID, just concerns. They had children, what have you. And yet yesterday, he shuts down the Arizona offense with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, Andy Isabella, and they pick up a win on a last-second field goal by Nick Folk, a walk-off. They're 5-6. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs because they got they got the Jets again, so that's a win. So 6-6. But they got the Bills. That's tough. They got the Dolphins, who are right there. The Dolphins are a better team than New England. And I just don't see them making it. But I got to give a hand to Bill Belichick because they have no receivers that are any good. They have a former quarterback playing wide receiver in Jacoby Myers, who's Demir Bird, who's in Carolina, who's a throwaway. Julian Edelman looks like a shell of himself. He's got a piano on his back right now. Their tight end group has 8 catches all year. And that was such a focus of their offense with Gronk, with Ben Watson back in the day, Aaron Hernandez. But kudos to the New England Patriots because they come out to play every time. Every time they come to play every game like it's their own, like it's their last one. Sorry, and I got to give them credit. They played hard. They deserve the win. And good on them. Also, it's important to talk about the NFC East. It's in the NFC East, we have the Giants, the Cowboys, the Washington football team, and the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Washington football team are 4-7, and they're tied for first. They're 4-7, tied for first. The New York Giants are also 4-7. They're in first because they've beaten Washington twice. That's how bad this division is, just to put this in perspective. The Giants are in first place. They've beaten Cincinnati. They beat Cincinnati yesterday by 2 points. Cincinnati is without Joe Burrow, who I wish a speedy recovery. He's the Heisman Trophy winner last year at LSU. He had the best college football season in the history of college football, in my opinion. And they had Brandon Allen from the practice squad start, and they nearly lost, but they won. So good on them. They've beaten Washington twice, and they've beaten the Eagles. So they've beaten their division 3 times in Cincinnati, who are hapless. But they're in first place. And then the Washington football team, who has the comeback player of the year, Alex Smith. If none of you know the story of Alex Smith broke his leg a little over 2 years ago. And I was watching the game live, and it was really it reminded me of the Lawrence Taylor break on Joe Theismann. If you haven't seen that one, there's a YouTube video, and it's, I'll tell you right now, it's pretty disturbing because you can literally hear Joe's leg snap. But so Alex Smith was in the game, broke his leg. He was going to have surgery, but there was a complication because it got infected, and he almost had to amputate his leg. And because the infection got so bad, he almost died. And when I mean like, oh, he had an infection almost, I mean he almost died. He was on the table, nearly dead. But somehow he keeps his leg, and he basically had to learn how to walk again. And he's playing football in the NFL this year. He's won 2 starts this year for the Washington team. He's an inspiration to see him come back. Is he the player he was before? No. But he was still good enough to beat the Dallas Cowboys on Thanksgiving. They went out there and won. They played great. They kept it close. Fourth quarter, they took advantage. They got the win. Defensive score, Alex Smith threw a couple of touchdowns. And it was a game. It was a game to remember. But that division, just the biggest thing to remember is that if you ever watch that division, it is so bad. It might be the worst division in the history of football. The winner of that division will probably have 6 wins. 6. They'll finish 6-10. 6-10. That's how bad that. And they'll have a home playoff game for being 6-10. For being that bad, they'll be 6-10. It's quite astonishing. But, another team that always plays on Thanksgiving is, of course, America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. They they're terrible right now. Ezekiel Elliott, who was a 4th overall pick 5 years ago, out of Ohio State, he looks like a shell of himself. He's fumbled 5 times this year. And on Thursday's game against Washington, he fumbled without anybody hitting him. He was running and he just lost it. Nobody hit him. Nobody was really around him. Ball came out. I don't know how that happens, but maybe Master Yoda sent the force at him and the ball just went fucking flying. But their coaching is inept. In that game, they're on their own 24-yard line in the 4th quarter. And they're only down 3. And the Washington offense has been pretty bad. And if you know football, it's a 4th quarter, but they had 10 minutes. You're going to get the ball back if you trust their defense. Their defense has been playing well. So give your defense a shot, right? They're on their own 24. You punt. It's just smart. But yet, they run a fake play, a fake punt, but they do 2 laterals where they throw the ball. They do a direct snap, and they throw the ball behind him to Cedric Wilson, who's wide receiver. But he's 10 yards behind the yards to gain. So that means he's got to run 11 to get the first down. And of course, he loses another 5. So Washington gets the ball inside the Dallas 20, and of course, they score a touchdown in the next play. It's the game over. But it was 2 4th downs in that game where they went for it, and it was terrible play calls. That game, coaching cost them the game and just really bad running back play. They lost Dak Prescott in week 5 to a terrible ankle injury. But that division still has some weight to it because just how bad it is. Somebody's going to win it. So every game is really important. And a lot of them there's 5 games left for the Cowboys. Play Baltimore. They play the Giants again. They play the Eagles in the last game of the season. So they have some tough opponents. The Eagles have a really tough schedule. They play Arizona, Green Bay, New Orleans, the Cowboys again, and the football team. So, and Seattle tonight. So I don't know if the Eagles win another 2 games. I really don't. They're not going to win tonight. Seattle's going to beat them tonight. They're not going to beat New Orleans. Even with Taysom Hill, I think New Orleans beats them. They might be able to beat Dallas, but it's in Dallas. I don't know. I don't have confidence they'll win that game. They're not beating Green Bay. So that division likely will be won by the New York Football Giants. Probably with 6 wins. They play the Cowboys again. I think that they play the Cowboys in the second last week of the season. That'll be the most important game of the season. I think it'll be for the division. And if they can win, I think they can because they have a good, pretty solid defense. Their offense is not good, but neither is the Cowboys. I like the coaching way better on the Giants. Joe Judge he's been coaching hard. I'll give him that. His team isn't very talented, but he's coached them tough. So I give him props. But that division's far from over, so just keep tabs on that one. In that division, like I said, Philly plays Seattle tonight on Monday Night Football. And a week from today, the Cowboys will be playing Baltimore on Monday Night Football. So keep your eyes out for those games. Also on the weekend, we had Green Bay last night, Sunday Night Football. I was hoping for a better game. Wasn't. Aaron Rodgers only had to throw for 211 yards, but he threw 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers: Robert Tonyan, Alan Lazard, Mercedes Lewis, and Devontae Adams. And Green Bay looked good. But Green Bay, I don't trust them because their run defense sucks. Their defense isn't very good. And I know it's deceiving because you say, well, 8-3, no, lighten up. No. Because you can be 8-3, you can beat the Jacksonvilles of the world, you can beat the Chicago Bears of the world, you can beat the Detroit Lions of the world. But you start playing good teams, you're going to get your ass kicked. And they've lost to good teams. They've lost to Indy, they lost to Tampa Bay, and they lost. Minnesota isn't a great team, but they can run the ball. They have Dalvin Cook, who ran for over 200 against. He ran for 203 against them. So Green Bay, you can't make any additions to your defense at this point of the season. So you're going to have to patchwork it and hope for the best. And Aaron Rodgers will have to play some great football. He's had one of the best careers in the history of the NFL, but he's only got one Super Bowl. He might be the most talented quarterback in the history of the game until Mahomes has shown up. But if his legacy really wants to be something that's people talk about for the rest of the time, he needs to win another Super Bowl, in my opinion. And I don't think he has a great team, but he's a great player. So maybe he can do it. He has Devontae Adams, who's a top 3 receiver in the NFL. If they can get a couple big stops, who knows? Because if you look at the teams in the NFC, you have New Orleans, who's 9-2. They're first in the NFC. But Drew Brees is out for another week for sure. Probably more. He's got 11 broken ribs and a collapsed lung. And he's 41. And last year he missed time and came back. Well, when he came back, he wasn't the same player. And they lost in their first playoff game that they played. They lost a wild card game to Minnesota. So if future repeats itself, which I think has a good chance of doing, he's going to come back and not be that great. And they have a great defense. That's one thing about last year's team. New Orleans has a great defense. So that would worry me a bit for Green Bay. But Green Bay's already beaten New Orleans this year with Drew Brees in at quarterback. So they have that to fall back on. Also in the NFC, for good teams, none of them in the NFC East are good. But the Rams are pretty good. They lost yesterday, but they're pretty. I think they're good. Again, there's no great team. I don't think the Chiefs are a great team. But you have the Cardinals, who aren't great. Like it's a logjam in the NFC. Tampa Bay has lost 3 of the last 4. Tom Brady looks 43. They don't look good. So there's an opening there for anybody who wants to take it. Also, on the weekend, we heard nothing about the NHL season. Just to give you guys an update about what I think is going to happen here. The NBA is slated to start December 22nd. Training camps open tomorrow. The Toronto Raptors are going to have to be playing in Tampa Bay because the Canadian government is not allowing them to play here with teams traveling in and out due to COVID, which, I don't love, but we got to trust the process and, fear the pandemic. So they don't have a plan yet. They say they still want to start January 1st, but it's not going to start January 1st because they haven't set a date yet. I think they want to play 48 games. That's what they did in the 2013 lockout season. And if they start January 20th to 23rd like they did in that season, they'll be able to finish 48 games by April and have their regular playoffs and finish the season in early June, So that's my guess. But the owners restructured the CBA during quarantine in March when the league shut down. And they want to renegotiate it again, but the players have basically said, shove it. And I don't blame them. The owners changed their money, changed the rules, changed everything 6 months ago, and they already want to do it again. So the players really aren't willing to budge. And if I'm the players, they always buck, they always bend. I wouldn't this time because the league needs to have a product. Players need to get paid, don't get me wrong, but the league needs to have hockey this year because you're going to have fans get really mad about it. You have the NBA playing, you have the NFL with all their COVID issues still playing. Baseball will start up again. You have the MLS playoffs right now. The NHL needs this to work. And I think it will, but it's a really bad look that they haven't come up with anything yet, and it's December 1st tomorrow. So they need to get it together soon, because not everybody's like me and is just going to watch hockey because it's their love, you know. Everybody's got lives. I don't. I watch sports. That's my life. So they need to do a better job with their marketing. I've been saying that to family members for years. They suck at marketing their product. Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, those players should be marketed way better. When you see the name LeBron James, you see the name Kevin Durant, you know who you're talking about because you've seen them. People promote their sport, and the NHL sucks at it. But on this podcast, I'll keep you up to date with anything that changes in that front. But I just thought I'd give everybody a little idea of where they're at, and I would suspect a January 23rd start to the 2021 season. Likely 48 games. So tonight we have Monday Night Football. Eagles, Seahawks. Eagles will lose tonight. Seahawks will likely win this game. Russell Wilson plays some good football. If Chris Carson's back at running back, Carson Wentz has the most. He's got 18 interceptions, the most in the NFL. He's played terrible this year. Doug Peterson's coached horribly too. So Seattle should win the game tonight. I'd say they're probably one of the bigger threats to the Saints or the Chiefs. I think Seahawks Chiefs would be a hell of a Super Bowl. A lot of people say, Chiefs Buccaneers. I've seen Tom Brady playing enough. He's really boring to watch. I really don't need to see him again. Now, I'm not saying I don't root for anybody. I don't have a favorite team in any sport. You can ask I used to be a Leaf fan, openly and honest. I used to be. I'm not anymore. When I started taking journalism at St. Thomas, I said, if I'm going to talk about sports, if I'm going to do this, for a living, I need to be unbiased. And, I don't have skin in the race. So I just talk about sports, how they're going. And I think the Seahawks, if their defense can improve, they can make a run at another Super Bowl appearance this year. Russell Wilson has 2. I'm sure he'd love a 3rd on his resume. Also, Tuesday Night Football this week, because the Ravens have had 18 positive tests over the last 6 days. So as of right now, the game is still scheduled between the division AFC North, between the Steelers and Ravens. I'll hold my breath. I don't know. The NFL needs to get the game in because there's no more bye weeks. So it's tough to fit in games this late in the year. So I suspect the game will be played. It's Tuesday night, 9:00 on NBC. Tonight, it's obviously on ESPN. Week 12 was a great week. We're getting the home stretch. It's sad. Only 5 more weeks of regular season football. I don't like saying that because the NFL is my favorite thing in the world. Every Sunday, I get on that couch and I put in work for about, 8 to 10 hours. I sat there from 2:00 till about midnight last night. So I'll be back tomorrow night on To The Point with our first episode of The Observers with my friend Seamus Fillmore. We're talking about the show next. So please join us. We're going to try to go live tomorrow night. Still working out the glitches with YouTube. So I'll send out a link if I can figure that out by tomorrow night. If not, you'll find it. I'll post it on our social media pages Wednesday morning. So you can watch the episode first if you want. If not, you can still listen to it and kind of hear our thoughts on it. But yeah, this has been really fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed the content so far, and you'll hear from me soon. Have a great day, everybody.